So welcome back to another video and a how to paint. This time you could say that these mountains look finished, but there's something that's worrying me. Both these scenes were experiments, and you can see where I've gone back in and put in some white opaque gouache paint in here and in here, and then excuse me, also speckled by just using my hand and just flicking the paint in. While I like some of the effects that are there, it just doesn't quite sit right really, so I'm gonna fix it a bit. We have in the distance, we've got the distant mountains. They're not too bad, they could be a bit grayer. Here excuse me, we've got too much purple, and here I'm going to dumb down that bit from the purple again, but we'll see how we go. I'm just going to try and strengthen this up. It's all a little bit flat. This is lesson number 4 in rescuing mountains and improving them. So we're going to come in and work on some of the areas at the front. So we've got our burnt umber there and some ultramarine. Just keep that nice and warm and see what happens. Let's just come in here and just warm this up a bit, and I'm just going to take out some of the blurred edges and replace them with sharper edges. I mean, this effect here is quite nice, but I'm going to sharpen this off just so we can see the effect of that. Keeping it nice and liquid. Just keeping some of the mixture that was underneath, the wash underneath, and that will shine through. Some more this is cobalt blue rather, ultramarine, just to mix it up a little bit, and some umber, just varying the colour a bit. There we go. Coming down here now, all the way down. So just a touch more umber in here because it's a little bit blue. Going to warm this up. That's going to stop there. There we go. That should dry off quite nicely. Using the same mixture, we have our ultramarine and our umber. Going to pop this in over this already rather dark mixture and just take out this white on here, but I don't want to just go and pop in by just trying to take out the white. You need to go over everywhere really, otherwise it's going to look a bit odd. So even this is just a fine sort of light glaze that we have here. Touch more water, cobalt, ultramarine. Obviously this needs to be quite warm. Just going to go back into here and sort this out. Now what I need this to do is either to be equal in tone to this right hand mountain, if they're the two mountains together, or darker to push this one back, and I think I'll go in darker, so we've got some neutral tint that I'm going to add to this mixture, and we're just going to pop that in just on the edge, the point. If you can see the point of this squirrel mop, points up nicely, and that's quite a dark tone in there. There we go. That might help a bit as well, just to push that back. And finally, on these couple of mountains here, you've seen me use tissue before, but if we just gently dab out some of this, it will help a little bit to create some texture and push this mountain back a touch. Don't want to go too mad with it, but there we go, that'll do. Now clean brush, clean out the brush. Back to the squirrel mop brush here. Just wash that out a little bit. And here we're going to come in again, and I'm just going to wet this a second. I just need to be careful not to touch the edges of these two mountains because it will bleed in. We're going to warm it up, so I'm going to go for alizarin crimson there with a touch of cobalt blue, just a touch and a touch of ultramarine. Let's just see how that's going to work. That's warmer, which will be a bit nicer, but it's a bit too warm for my liking, so I'm going to just change that in a second. Just touch in some ultramarine just to cool it down a little bit in places. We want it to come forward, but I don't want it to come leaping too far forward that it competes with this. At the moment it is a little bit. I know that all of this will dry lighter, so I'm just going to take out some of this liquid, and that will help greatly. Ultramarine again. Just let that bleed in. That's a bit better. Mix up some of these tones. Okay, I'll save that for in a second. I'm just going to use the number 12, the sable brush. It's got some water in it. And we're just going to come in here. Just sort this out a little bit. This was all very splattery, it almost looks as if rain has gone on it. It's going to come down there. This is a bit weird, and this is a bit weird. It doesn't quite work really, does it? So I think we'll sort that out. Just drop a little piece of blue in the top there to do its own thing and blend and bleed in, which it will do. Now as we go back, we need to keep the tones quite light at the moment. These two tones are quite similar, so I need to bear that in mind. And I just take out a little touch here. Looks a bit better. I quite like the faintness of here, but touch of cobalt. We will strengthen this one tonally, so these ones go back a bit more. So that's that done. And then here, these two bother me, so I'm going to come back to this one. This is dry. Now, we're going to work down here now. We're going to go for the two. I'm going to work back the other way, so I'm quite pleased with the way this comes forward. But I'm just going to take out this purple. It's just a little bit too purple for my liking all the way through, and replace it with some cooler tones. And there we go. And a similar one here. That looks better. This again doesn't look strong enough. I'm going to leave these two for the moment, but I'm just going to strengthen up the tones on this. We'll leave some of these splatters the way it's blended in, but I'm just going to create a little bit more of a little bit more form, in other words, so it looks a bit more solid. So we'll bring in a suggestion of a shadow on this side, if you can see that, and we'll do a similar thing on this side as well, just by darkening that tone. There we go, that's nice. I'll put one in here as well. It's just a suggestion of shadows, and that's all it needs to be. It doesn't need to be too precise. I'm just trying to get this back up to the tops of these mountains, because when it dries it looks slightly odd. Tonally though, I'm just gonna, it's a touch of umber, just warm this up a little bit. There we go. So it's coming forward tonally. Just squint my eyes up just to make sure that was actually happening. Could come a little bit darker here. Tone. That's better. Let that just bleed in. Okay, and now we've got these two foreground mountains. I think this one's okay, and I quite like the way it sort of bleeds off. This one we could just bring in darker. We're going to bring the big guns, as they say, the neutral tint, added to some ultramarine, and then some umber. This is quite a dry mixture, this one. I could have changed over brushes, but the space we've got to fill here isn't too big. So we'll come in with quite dry brush. A touch more neutral tint. And this tonally is this quite dark, this is, but this is the way we're doing this dry brush is creating some nice sort of textural effects, because what was below or underneath in that original wash is peeking through, breaking through. So that's quite nice. There. And I think I'm just about done, except I always say that, and then there's a little bit more. I'm just going to touch on the edge here, just to create a little bit more form, and then wash out the brush, take out some of the moisture, and just let that bleed into clear water. So that should bleed in there and drop down there to suggest kind of the lip of this. I said about sorting these out, they're quite bright, but actually in the context now they're kind of seeming to fall more into place. So I might just leave those as light patches. Except this one could have a bit of a dulling down. That's a bit better. Same on this side. I think we'll dull this one down a touch as well with that mixture. Okay. Finally, I just noticed something that's a bit odd. I'm going to bring this in a bit darker and bring it over here a touch. I know this is going to bleed in, but it just seemed odd that it didn't kind of disappear behind this mountain there, and that seems to be a bit better. So there we go. Final thing, never hurts this. I'm just going to splatter in some water, just a touch. Sometimes I do it with a brush. Sometimes you've seen, I'll just grab some water and do it with my finger. When it all dries, create some effects. I went a bit mad originally, but we've kind of rescued this, I feel. And that's it. So thanks a lot for watching this part 4 of improving your mountains, and remember to join me again. I will dry this off, and I'll show you a little clip at the end, but thanks for that. So here we are again, been back into this, dried it all off, and now you can see how it's actually really working quite nicely all over. You've got the foreground mountain here, and then one behind it, and that goes behind it still. Some nice blending and bleeding mixes in this part, and it just seems to work quite nicely now. The same is over here as well. I quite like the whited and splattered effect there as it blends and bleeds in. You've got a slight darker tone, and again, overall, I think that works quite nicely. So remember to subscribe. Thanks for joining me, and take care now, and happy painting.